This tutorial will walk you through creating a graphic outline on your image. So basically outlining your image using just a single line that carries throughout the entire picture. This is great if you have an image where you just wanted to outline some sort of simple symbol to put into the background of your project, or if you're just outlining maybe a portrait to add a little bit more with the tablet or a design to your image. So this could be used in a number of ways for your project. Since you downloaded the picture that looks like this, you can just zoom in on the bottom half, or if you would like to crop the top half out, that's fine. But it's just nice so you can go back and forth to refer to what I'm looking for as you're outlining and then your image below here. But remember, the most important thing with using the tablet and tracing things is to always add a new layer. So I'm going to add that new layer to my background image there. That way I can hide my background and have just my drawing when I'm done. Or if I mess up, I can erase the parts that I messed up on and go back to my original picture. So very important to have a new layer. If you go to your little selection for the different brushes, I would choose really any paintbrush you want. This image that I did on the top, I had just a regular paintbrush, so maybe the second one. But if you wanted to play around with some different styles for your brush, that could always create an interesting effect on your image. So something like this could be interesting for more of a stylized paintbrush. So I'm going to use this one for now. But again, you can play around with different brushes. And I'm leaving all the settings at the top how they are here. I would recommend zooming in on your image. I'm going to actually make that brush just a little bit smaller. And remember, you can use the brackets to change the size on your keyboard. Now, the reason why this picture that I'm working with and that you'll be working with is blurry is because it was downloaded from online. So every time you're downloading something from online, it is going to be slightly blurry like this. But what I'm doing here is just outlining all of the main lines that I see. So I'm just using one line. And remember, with the tablets, the more pressure you put on the brush, the darker your lines are going to be. So if you want something for maybe an eyebrow to be a little bit lighter, that's where you're going to press a lot lighter with your brush. And I actually have a weird dark green color selected right now, so it's up to you if you want to, which color you want to use. I'm going to actually undo that so that I'm using black as I'm outlining. But again, take your time as you're outlining and really try your best to stay consistent on those lines the best you can. I'm going to go really lightly above the eye there, do a few eyebrows. I know some of these lines are kind of tricky to see, but just try your best to slowly outline areas. If you mess up or if you don't like what yours looks like, I would just hit Command Z on your keyboard and that will quickly undo something for you. I would also try to outline some areas of shadow and highlight. So on the face here, I'm just really lightly pressing with the tablet, with the pen, to create a few of those details. And then some of these darker areas where the darker shadows are, that's where I would press a little bit harder with the tablet. So go ahead and outline certain areas. I also am going to talk about in this video what to do with it when you're finished. So if you wanted to, at this point, pause the video and come back to it once you finish outlining, you can go ahead and do that. As I'm outlining the hair here, I'm not really outlining every single detail, but just kind of the general lines. If you have a picture with a lot of detail, you can almost make up a few lines. So I'm going to kind of make the hair come around here, maybe carry it down at the bottom. So just play around with what works for you in whichever picture you're working with. But I'm going to go over just a few more of these shadows, get some of the hair across the face. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of the hair into the background, and I'm outlining some of these shadows. If you were going to a video, the next video that goes over um, more of the sketchy outline, that's where you would be shading in these areas with value change. But again, this is more of just a simple outline, so you don't really have to worry too much about shading things in unless you're doing that next video as well, which will just add a little bit more detail to something like this to make it more like a drawing effect versus an outline. But once you're finished, I would add a new layer, and I'm going to drag this layer underneath the layer that I just drew everything on, and I'm going to fill it with a solid color. So if you find where your gradient is, this little box, and hold it down, there's the paint bucket tool, and I'm going to click these little arrows here to switch the white to the box in the foreground, and then I'm going to click to fill that background white. So now you can see just that outline that I did here. So there's that plain graphic outline. You could also play around with different types of backgrounds. So maybe you do want to play around with that gradient tool. So I'm going to click on that gradient, and if you click over here, you can change your colors to whatever two colors you have selected. So maybe instead of black and white, I'll do a light pink for one color, and then maybe a blue for another color in the background. So then when I click back up here, it gives me that option for the pink and blue. And then I'm just going to click and drag across my image for where I want that gradient to be. So that could be something interesting to play around with. If this was your final project, from here I would maybe think about the symbols that you're adding, maybe add or go down to some of the videos that talk about texture and add some texture into the background. But for practice, this is what I'm looking for. You can go ahead and save this as a JPEG, so File, Save As, and then add this to Classroom and move on to some of your other techniques that you would like to practice with. The last thing I want to mention is if you click on your top layer, so the layer that you drew on, and hit Command T, you're able to change the size of your image, you can rotate it, and play around with the placement as well. So again, save it and get that turned in.